The cold winter winds swept through the dense pine forests of Western Europe in the waning months of 1944. As American forces pushed deeper into German territory, they encountered an enemy fighting with increasing desperation. Among the most feared of these defenders were the German snipers, patient, methodical hunters of men who could paralyze an entire company's advance with a single well-placed shot. The psychology of combat on the Western Front stood in stark contrast to the savage brutality of the Eastern Front. While the war between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union had descended into a merciless struggle for survival where prisoners were rarely taken, the Western theater maintained, however tenuously, certain conventions of warfare that preserved a thin veneer of humanity amid the carnage. For the German sniper, this distinction offered little comfort. Trained at specialized schools established throughout the Reich, these marksmen represented the elite of German infantry. Their primary weapon, the Mauser 98K rifle fitted with a ZF-4 scope, was a precision instrument capable of delivering accurate fire at ranges exceeding 800 meters. The 7.92mm round it fired could penetrate standard helmets and body armor, making cover a relative concept when these specialists had you in their sights. The sniper creates fear out of proportion to his actual capability, noted an American intelligence report from November 1944. A single shot can halt an entire platoon's movement and sow confusion throughout a company-sized element. The typical German sniper underwent 6 weeks of specialized training after selection from regular infantry units. They learned not just marksmanship, but fieldcraft, the art of camouflage, movement, and patience. A good sniper could remain motionless for hours, sometimes days, awaiting the perfect shot. Their primary targets were officers, radio operators, and non-commissioned officers, the leadership and communications backbone of any infantry unit. As Americans pushed through the Hürtgen Forest in the fall of 1944, they encountered these deadly specialists in increasing numbers. The dense woodland, with visibility often reduced to less than 50 yards, was ideal sniper territory. German defensive doctrine had evolved to maximize the psychological impact of these marksmen. Hey folks, I really appreciate you following along with this historical journey. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the tactical realities of the Western Front, please consider subscribing to the channel for more authentic war history. I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. The perspective on these events varies greatly depending on which part of the world you call home. Now, back to the forests of Western Europe in 1944. For German troops, the perception of Americans had been shaped by years of Nazi propaganda. Joseph Goebbels' propaganda ministry had portrayed American soldiers as gangsters, cowboys and criminals, undisciplined but dangerous. More critically, German troops had been indoctrinated with the belief that surrender was dishonorable and that Allied forces would show little mercy to specialized troops like snipers, whose purpose was to pick off individual soldiers from concealment. This fear wasn't entirely unfounded. The nature of sniper warfare, the impersonal killing from hiding, the targeting of specific individuals, generated a unique hatred among infantry troops. American soldiers who had seen friends killed by snipers often expressed a desire for revenge that transcended normal combat psychology. Field reports indicated instances where regular prisoners were treated according to protocol, while captured snipers faced harsher interrogations. When you lose your lieutenant to a sniper, something changes in the men, recounted Staff Sergeant Raymond Ganter of the 1st Infantry Division in a December 1944 letter home. It becomes personal in a way that regular combat doesn't. The German High Command understood this dynamic. Snipers were instructed to prioritize officers wearing rank insignia, soldiers carrying maps, and radio operators, all identifiable by their equipment. The tactical value was clear: disrupt command and control. But the psychological calculation was equally important: create fear and hesitation among all troops moving through contested areas. As the Battle of Hürtgen Forest intensified, German defensive positions increasingly relied on interlocking fields of fire, with machine gun nests supported by carefully positioned snipers. These marksmen often operated in pairs, contrary to popular portrayal, with one observer and one shooter. They would change positions after several shots, making counterfire nearly impossible in the dense forest. The realities of this environment weighed heavily on the minds of German snipers. Captured documents revealed standing orders that snipers should fight to the last round rather than surrender. Many carried only their identification tags and minimal personal effects, a tacit acknowledgement that capture might mean summary execution rather than prisoner processing. This mindset was reinforced by stories filtering back from the Eastern Front, where the mutual hatred between German and Soviet forces had eliminated most mercy from the battlefield equation. While the Western Front maintained a higher standard of adherence to the Geneva Conventions, German snipers had little reason to believe these protections would extend to them personally. By November 1944, as American forces prepared for what would become the final push into Germany itself, the skilled German sniper had become a figure of outsized menace in the American military imagination, respected for his deadly skill, but hunted with a determination that bordered on the personal. The rolling hills of the Hürtgen Forest in late 1944 offered American infantry an entirely new battlefield challenge. Unlike the hedgerows of Normandy or the open fields of France, this dense woodland, with its steep ravines and limited visibility, created a defensive nightmare for advancing troops. The 4th Infantry Division, having already endured the brutal fighting of Utah Beach and the liberation of Paris, now faced an enemy determined to defend every inch of their homeland. By November 1944, American forces pushed into Germany's ancient Hürtgen Forest. The dense pine stands with their straight trunks offered perfect concealment for German defenders, while restricting American movement to narrow, predictable paths. This environment proved ideal for snipers, who established interlocking fields of fire covering trails, clearings, and suspected approach routes. The trees were so thick the sun barely reached the ground. Recalled Sergeant William Meller of the 4th Infantry's 8th Regiment. Every time we moved forward, we'd hear that distinctive crack of a rifle shot, followed by someone calling for a medic. You couldn't see them. They could see us. The snipers deployed against American forces were primarily drawn from Jaeger units, Germany's specialized light infantry, with extensive forestry and hunting backgrounds. Armed with the standard Karabiner 98K, fitted with ZF-4 telescopic sights, they operated in two-man teams, the shooter and a spotter, who also provided security. Their primary targets were officers, radio operators, and squad leaders, creating confusion within American units. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Hazlitt of 1st Battalion ordered specialized counter-sniper operations as casualties mounted. "We had to adapt quickly," wrote Hazlitt in his after-action report. "Standard frontal advance was suicide against these sharpshooters. We implemented flanking maneuvers with small 5-man teams moving independently to locate and neutralize sniper positions. One such team was led by Staff Sergeant Thomas Whelan, who developed effective techniques for identifying German positions. They rarely fired more than twice from the same location, Whelan later documented. But we started looking for broken branches, not footprints, for disturbed moss on rocks, for slight changes in the natural pattern of the forest floor. The 22nd Infantry Regiment devised a particularly effective countermeasure. When a sniper revealed his position by firing, 3 separate squads would immediately deploy in wide, sweeping movements to encircle the estimated location. This prevented the German marksmen from withdrawing along their predetermined escape routes. One such operation unfolded near the village of Grosschau. After a German sniper eliminated 2 American scouts at a crossroads, Captain Richard Merritt ordered 3 squads to execute a pincer movement while the remainder of his company maintained suppressing fire to fix the sniper in position. Private First Class Joseph Martino, a 19-year-old from Buffalo, New York, was part of the western flanking element. His squad moved cautiously through a ravine, using the sound of sporadic firing to maintain their bearings. We came up behind what looked like a small hunting blind, carefully constructed from branches and covered with pine needles. Martino recalled after the war. It was almost invisible until you were right on top of it. Inside were 2 German soldiers, a sniper and his assistant, both members of the 275th Infantry Division. They had been operating in this sector for 3 days, according to documents later recovered. The Americans had approached from their blind spot, leaving the Germans with no escape route. When we called for them to surrender, I could see the fear in their eyes, Martino stated. The older one, maybe 30, just stared straight ahead. The younger one couldn't have been more than 17. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely raise them. The Germans had been thoroughly indoctrinated about American treatment of prisoners. Nazi propaganda described U.S. forces as vengeful, undisciplined troops who would execute snipers on the spot, a reflection of the Germans' own practices on the Eastern Front rather than American policy. The captured snipers clearly expected immediate execution. Sergeant Frank Colson, who spoke rudimentary German from his Pennsylvania childhood, attempted to communicate with the prisoners. They were rigid, almost at attention, he noted in his field journal. When I motioned for them to empty their pockets for inspection, the younger one began to cry silently. They thought we were preparing to shoot them. The tense standoff momentarily intensified when the older German sniper attempted to conceal a photograph in his boot. American soldiers immediately trained their weapons on him, fingers tightening on triggers. The situation balanced on a knife's edge. It was Private Robert Davis, a 20-year-old from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who defused the situation. Lowering his M1 Garand, Davis reached into his jacket and pulled out a crumpled pack of Lucky Strike cigarettes. With a casual gesture that belied the gravity of the moment, he extended the pack toward the Germans. "Smoke?" he asked simply. The surprise on the Germans' faces was evident. The older sniper hesitated, then slowly reached for the cigarette, his eyes never leaving Davis's face. When no shot came as punishment for the movement, his shoulders visibly relaxed. The younger German followed suit, his hands still trembling as Davis offered him a light. This small act of humanity amid the brutal forest fighting marked a turning point. As the prisoners were secured and prepared for evacuation to the rear, their demeanor transformed from terrified resignation to cautious relief. Staff Sergeant Whelan observed the interaction with approval. Getting these snipers alive was worth more than killing them, he later wrote. Each one captured told others we weren't the monsters their propaganda claimed, made the next group more likely to surrender rather than fight to the death. The intelligence value of these prisoners proved significant. During initial field interrogation conducted by Captain Merritt's attached intelligence officer, the Germans revealed the locations of additional sniper positions, artillery observation posts, and minefields in the battalion's planned advance route. "I didn't offer that cigarette to make friends," Davis later explained to a war correspondent. "I did it because that's how Americans fight wars. We're not here to slaughter these guys. We're here to beat them and go home." As American forces advanced deeper into Germany, this pattern would repeat itself across the front lines. The expected brutality gave way to professional military conduct, even amid the forest fighting that claimed over 33,000 American casualties during the Hürtgen campaign. The captured German snipers were processed through standard channels, first to regimental headquarters for tactical interrogation, then to division-level processing. From there, they would join the growing population of German POWs transported to camps throughout France and eventually to the United States itself. The standard American prisoner processing protocol was efficient, though often modified by field conditions. When a German sniper was captured, his equipment was immediately secured, especially his rifle and scope. Prized souvenirs that technically belonged to army ordnance, but frequently disappeared into footlockers. The prisoner was quickly searched for hidden weapons or intelligence materials, then evacuated to regimental collection points before transfer to division-level holding areas. "The first thing we did was get that damn rifle," recalled Sergeant William Hancock of the 4th Infantry Division. "Those scopes were worth their weight in gold. Then we'd pat them down, take any papers, maps, sometimes photos. You'd be surprised how many carried pictures of their families." Unlike the propaganda they'd been fed, German snipers discovered the American POW system to be remarkably professional. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Mayhew, who supervised POW operations for the 7th Corps in late 1944, explained, "We needed intelligence. A sniper who'd spent days observing our lines knew things our G2 wanted to hear. Mistreating them would have been counterproductive." This practical approach yielded results. Former Wehrmacht sniper Karl Weimann, captured near Schmidt in November 1944, later recounted, "I was certain they would shoot me. When the American sergeant offered cigarettes instead of a bullet, I was so confused I could barely speak." Later that day, I told them everything they asked about our defensive positions. Why not? They had treated me like a human. The intelligence value of these prisoners proved substantial. Snipers, by the nature of their assignment, often possessed detailed knowledge of defensive layouts, unit positions, and command post locations. Through careful interrogation conducted by German-speaking Americans, many from Jewish refugee families, valuable tactical information flowed back to frontline units. Staff Sergeant Morris Kaufman, a Jewish-American intelligence specialist with the 28th Infantry Division, recalled, "These snipers knew things regular infantry didn't. When captured near Komischeit, gave us the entire artillery registration grid for their 105 mm batteries. That information probably saved hundreds of American lives." The contrast with Eastern Front practices couldn't have been starker. On the Soviet-German front, snipers received particularly harsh treatment when captured. Soviet troops, having endured the systematic brutality of German occupation, frequently executed snipers immediately upon capture. Likewise, German forces routinely eliminated Soviet snipers, particularly the feared female snipers, who had inflicted heavy casualties on Wehrmacht officers. "We knew about the Russians," admitted former Wehrmacht sniper Hans Krebs in a 1978 interview. "If the Russians caught you with a scope, you were finished. No questions, no mercy. That's why we fought so hard on the Eastern Front." But against Americans, by late '44, many of us had already decided that surrender was acceptable. "We heard they fed you white bread and gave you coffee." This differential treatment had cascading effects on German morale and surrender rates. By early 1945, German units facing American forces surrendered at dramatically higher rates than those on the Eastern Front. The humane treatment of prisoners, including specialized personnel like snipers, created a feedback loop as word spread among German units. "The word got around," confirmed former Wehrmacht Lieutenant Werner Pluskat. "If you have to surrender, try to do it to the Americans. Even if you're a sniper, even if you've killed their men, they'll follow the rules." Documentary evidence supports this observation. Surrender rates on the Western Front increased by approximately 35% between November 1944 and March 1945, while Eastern Front surrender rates remained virtually unchanged. American intelligence officers attributed this partly to the consistent application of Geneva Convention standards, even toward enemy specialists traditionally viewed with particular hatred. The psychological transformation extended beyond immediate battlefield decisions. Kurt Müller, a sniper with the 352nd Volksgrenadier Division, captured near Malmedy in January 1945, later became an advocate for German-American reconciliation. My first contact with Americans was when they captured me. I expected the worst, but received decent treatment. It changed how I viewed them forever. These interactions, multiplied across thousands of similar encounters, helped establish the foundation for post-war cooperation between former enemies. Many German prisoners who experienced humane American treatment later supported democratic institutions during Germany's reconstruction. Military historians have since recognized this adherence to POW protocols as both a moral and strategic success. The practical intelligence benefits combined with the psychological impact on enemy forces created a powerful incentive structure that accelerated German surrenders in the war's final months. The story of German snipers receiving cigarettes instead of summary execution represents something profound about combat ethics. Under the most extreme conditions, where hatred and revenge might seem justified, American GIs largely maintained professional standards. This commitment to treating even the most feared enemy specialists according to established rules of war demonstrates how institutional values can sometimes withstand the corrosive effects of combat, as former PFC Thomas Burgess of the 1st Infantry Division reflected 50 years later. We hated those snipers. They killed our friends, our officers. But once they surrendered, they were just scared kids like us. I gave one my lucky strikes. He gave me his watch. That's war, I guess. 1 minute you're trying to kill each other, the next you're trading souvenirs. The legacy of these interactions persists in unexpected ways. In 1995, at a veterans reunion in Normandy, former German sniper Otto Henning embraced the American soldier who had captured him. He gave me cigarettes when he could have shot me, Henning explained to onlookers. That moment of humanity in hell, I never forgot it.